Hello everyone, welcome to today's discussion. I am Jean Fransanito, your reporter for today. I will be discussing Republic Act 4670 or the Magna Carta for public school teachers. Teachers are the most essential part of the society, and just imagine without them. Teachers are responsible of nurturing and shaping the future of the students. They sacrifice themselves to teach and spend most of their time in job. And because of that, the states gave rights and privileges to their noble profession. And this is why RA 4670 is being executed. RA 4670 Article 1 is about declaration of policy coverage. Section 1 states that RA 4670 or the Magna Carta for public school teachers aim to promote and improve the social and economic status of public school teachers, their living and working conditions, their terms of employment and career prospects, in order for them to compare favorably with existing opportunities in other walks of life, attract and retain teaching profession. Section 2 talks about title definition. It says here that the act shall be known as Magna Carta for public school teachers and apply to all public school teachers except the professional staff of state colleges and universities. The term teacher shall mean all persons engaged in a classroom teaching in any level of instruction on full-time basis, which includes guidance counselor, school librarians, vocational instructors, other person performing supervisory or administrative in all schools, colleges, and universities operated by government or political subdivision. Article 2 is about recruitful and career, in which Section 3, Recruitment and Qualification, states that it shall be clearly defined by the Department of Education, provided that effective upon the approval of this Act, the following shall constitute to the minimum educational qualifications for teacher applicants. Letter A, BSE Ed. This is for teachers in kindergarten and elementary grades. Bachelor's degree in elementary education. Letter B, for teachers of the secondary schools, bachelor's degree in education or its equivalent with a major and a minor, or a bachelor's degree in arts of science with at least 18 professional units in education. Letter C, teachers of secondary vocational and 2 years technical courses, bachelor's degree in the field of a specialization with at least 18 professional units in education. And lastly, for letter D, teachers of courses or collegiate level other than vocational, master's degree with specific area of specialization. Section 5 states the tenure of office. Stability in employment and security of tenure shall be assured the teachers as provided under existing laws. Subject to the provisions of Section 3 hereof, teachers appointed on a provisional status for lack of necessary civil service eligibility shall be extended permanent appointment for the position he is holding after having rendered at least 10 years of continuous, efficient, and faithful service to such position. Moving on to Section 6, which is the consent for transportation expenses. Except for cause, no teacher shall be transferred without his consent from one station to another. Such transfer may be effected by the school superintendent, who shall previously notify the teacher concerned of the transfer and the reason or reasons therefor. If the teacher believes there is no justification for the transfer, he may appeal his case to the Director of Public Schools or Director of Vocational Education. Pending his appeal and the decision thereon, his transfer shall be held in abeyance, provided, however, that no transfers whatever shall be made 3 months before any local or national election. Moving on to Section 7, the Code of Professional Conduct for Teachers. It states here that within 6 months from the approval of this Act, the Secretary of Education shall formulate and prepare a code of professional conduct for public teachers. A copy of the code shall be furnished by each teacher, provided that, where this is not possible by reason of inadequate fiscal resources of the Department of Education, at least 3 copies of the same code shall be deposited with the office of the school principal or head teacher, where they may be accessible for use by the teacher. Section 8 is the safeguards in disciplinary procedure. Every teacher shall enjoy adequate safeguards at each stage of any disciplinary procedure and shall have A. The right to be informed in any writing of the charges. B. The right to full access to the evidence in the case. C. The right to defend himself and to be defended by a representative of his choice and or by his organization. Adequate time being given to the teacher for the preparation of his defense. And D. The right to appeal to clearly designated authorities. And it is also added here that there is no publicity shall be given to any disciplinary action being taken against a teacher during the pendency of his case. Let's move on to Section 9, which is the administrative charges. Administrative charges against a teacher shall be heard initially by a committee composed of the corresponding school superintendent of the division or a duly authorized representative who should at least have the rank of a division supervisor where the teacher belongs. As chairman, a representative of the local or in its absence, any existing provincial or national teachers organization and a supervisor of the division, the last two to be designated by the director of public schools. In continuation, the committee shall submit findings and recommendations to the director of public school within 30 days from the termination of the hearings. Provided, however, that where the school superintendent is the complainant or an interested party, all the members of the committee shall be appointed by the Secretary of Education. It is amended in Section 10 that there shall be no discrimination in whatsoever entrance to the teaching profession, or during its exercise, or in the termination of services, based on other than professional consideration. In Section 11, merit teachers. Whenever possible, the proper authorities shall take all steps to enable merit couples, both of whom are public school teachers, to be employed in the same locality. Section 12, on the other hand, is the academic freedom. Teachers shall enjoy academic freedom in the charge of their professional duties, particularly with regard to teaching and classroom methods. B. Hours of work and remuneration. Section 13, Teaching Hours. It is stated here that any teacher engaged in actual classroom instruction shall not be required to render more than 6 hours of actual classroom teaching a day, which shall be scheduled as to give him time for the preparation and correction of exercises and other work incidental to his normal teaching duties. Provided, however, that the exigencies of the service so require, any teacher may be required to render more than 6 hours, but not exceeding 8 hours of actual classroom teaching a day, upon payment of additional compensation at the same rate as his regular remuneration plus at least 25% of his basic pay. In Section 14, Additional Compensation, it is stated that notwithstanding with the provision of existing law to the contrary, co-curricula and the school activities and any other activities outside of what is defined as normal duties of any teacher shall be paid an additional compensation of at least 25% after the teacher has completed at least 6 hours of classroom teaching a day. To continue, in the case of other teachers or school officials not engaged in actual classroom instruction, any work performed in excess of 8 hours a day shall be paid an additional compensation of at least 25% of their regular remuneration. The agencies utilizing services of teachers shall pay the additional compensation required under this section. Educational authorities, on the other hand, shall refuse to allow the rendition of services of teachers for other government agencies without the assurance that the teacher shall be paid the remuneration provided for this section. Section 15 is the criteria for salaries. Teacher salaries shall correspond to the following criteria. For letter A, they shall compare favorably with those paid in other occupations requiring equivalent or similar qualifications, training, and abilities. B, they shall be such as to ensure teachers a reasonable standard of life for themselves and their families. And for letter C, they shall be properly graded so as to recognize the fact that certain positions require higher qualifications and greater responsibility than others. To continue, the general salary scale shall be such that the relation between the lowest and highest salaries paid in the profession will be of reasonable order. Narrowing of the salary scale shall be achieved by raising the lower end of the salary scales relative to the upper end. Section 16 is the salary scale. Salary scales of teachers shall provide for a gradual progression from a minimum to a maximum salary by means of regular increments granted automatically after 3 years, provided that the efficiency rating of the teacher concerned is at least satisfactory. The progression from the minimum to the maximum of the salary scale shall not extend over a period of 10 years. Section 17 is the equality in salary scales. The salary scales of teachers whose salaries are appropriated by a city, municipal district, or provincial government shall not be less than those provided for teachers of the national government. Section 18 states the cost of living allowance. Teachers' salaries shall at the very least keep pace with the rise in the cost of living by the payment of a cost of living allowance, which shall automatically follow changes in the cost of living index. The Secretary of Education shall, in consultation with the proper government entities, recommend to Congress, at least annually, the appropriation of the necessary funds for the cost of living allowances of teachers employed by the national government. Furthermore, the determination of the cost of living allowances by the Secretary of Education shall, upon approval of the President of the Philippines, be binding on the city, municipal, provincial government for the purposes of calculating the cost of living allowances of teachers under its employment. Section 19, Special Hardship Allowances, states that in areas where teachers are exposed to hardship, such as difficulty in commuting to the place of work or other hazards peculiar to the place of employment, as determined by the Secretary of Education, they shall be compensated special hardship allowances equivalent to at least 25% of their monthly salary. Section 20, Salaries to be paid in legal tender. It is amended that the salaries of teachers shall be paid in legal tender of the Philippines or its equivalent in checks or treasury warrants, provided that the checks or treasury warrants shall be cashable in any national, provincial, or municipal treasurer's office or any banking institutions operating under the laws of the Republic of the Philippines. It is amended in Section 21 that deductions are prohibited. No person shall make any deduction in whatsoever reasons from the salaries of teachers except under specific authority of law authorizing such deductions, provided that, upon written authority executed by the teacher concerned, first, lawful dues and fees owing to the Philippine Public School Teachers Association, and 2, premiums properly due on insurance policies shall be considered deductible. Article 4, Health Measures and Injury Benefits. Section 22, Medical Examination and Treatment. Compulsory medical examination shall be provided free of charge for all teachers before they take up teaching. and shall be repeated not less than once a year during the teacher's professional life. Where medical examinations show that medical treatment and/or hospitalization is necessary, same shall be provided free by the government entity paying the salary of the teachers. In regions where there is scarcity of medical facilities, teachers may obtain elsewhere the necessary medical care with the right to be reimbursed for their traveling expenses by the government entity concerned in the first paragraph of this section. In relation to Section 22, Section 23 amended the compensation of injuries. Teachers shall be protected against the consequences of employment injuries in accordance with existing laws. The effects of the physical and nervous strain on the teacher's health shall be recognized as a compensable occupational disease in accordance with existing laws. Article 5 Leave Retirement and Benefits. Section 24 Study Leave. In addition to the leave privileges now enjoyed by teachers in the public schools, they shall be entitled to study leave not exceeding 1 school year after 7 years of service. Such leave shall be granted in accordance with a schedule set by the Department of Education. During the period of such leave, the teachers shall be entitled to at least 60% of their monthly salary, provided, however, that no teacher shall be allowed to accumulate more than 1 year of study leave, unless he needs an additional semester to finish his thesis for a graduate study in education or allied courses. Provided further that no compensation shall be due to the teacher after the first year of such leave. In all cases, the study leave period shall be counted for seniority and pension purposes. Section 25 Indefinite Leave. An indefinite sick leave of absence shall be granted to teachers when the nature of the illness demands a long treatment that will exceed 1 year at the least. Section 26 Salary Increase upon retirement. Public school teachers having fulfilled the age and service requirements of the applicable retirement laws shall be given one range salary raise upon retirement, which shall be the basis of the computation of the lump sum of the retirement pay and the monthly benefits thereafter. Article 6 Teachers' Organization. Section 27 Freedom to Organize. Public school teachers shall have the right to freely and without previous authorization both to establish and join organizations of their choice, whether local or national, to further and defend their interest. Section 28 Discrimination against teachers prohibited. The rights established in the immediately preceding section shall be exercised without any interference or coercion. It shall be unlawful if the person commit any acts of discrimination against teachers which are calculated to a. Make the employment of a teacher subject to the condition that he shall not join an organization or shall relinquish membership. B. To cause the dismissal of or otherwise prejudice a teacher by reason of his membership in an organization. C. To prevent him from carrying out the duties laid upon him by his position in the organization or to penalize him for an action undertaken in that capacity. Section 29 National Teachers Organizations. National teachers' organizations shall be consulted in the formulation of national educational policies and professional standards, and in the formulation of national policies governing the social security of the teachers. Article 7 Administration and Enforcement. Section 30 Rules and Regulations. The Secretary of Education shall formulate and prepare the necessary rules and regulations to implement the provisions of this Act. Rules and regulations issued pursuant to this section shall take effect 30 days after publication in a newspaper of general circulation and by such other means as the Secretary of Education deems reasonably sufficient to give interested parties general notice of such issuance. Section 31 Budgetary Estimates. The Secretary of Education shall submit to Congress annually the necessary budgetary estimates to implement the provisions of the Act concerning the benefits herein granted to public school teachers under the employment of the national government. Section 32 Penal Provision. A person who shall willfully interfere with restrain or coerce any teacher in the exercise of his rights guaranteed by this act, or who shall in any other manner commit any act to defeat any of the provisions of this act, shall, upon conviction, be punished by a fine of not less than 100 pesos, nor more than 1,000 pesos, or by imprisonment in the discretion of the court. If the offender is a public official, the court shall order his dismissal from the government service. Section 33, Repealing Clause. All acts or parts of the acts, executive orders, and their implementing rules inconsistent with the provisions of this act are hereby repealed, amended, or modified accordingly. Section 34, Separability Clause. If any provision of this act is declared invalid, the remainder of this act or any provisions not affected thereby shall remain in force and in effect. Section 35. The act shall take effect upon its approval, and it was approved on June 18, 1966. And that's all for today's discussion, guys. Thank you for watching.